everything, the king of everything. See me round town with my crown, go and kiss the ring. Roses at my feet because I'm royalty like Prince Hakeem. Coming to.
Alright, so how would you compare the New York hip-hop scene to the Bay Area hip-hop scene?
Well, the New York hip-hop scene in comparison to the Bay Area hip-hop scene is kind of like, well, there's a disbalance now. What I enjoy about the Bay Area hip-hop scene is because it's very reminiscent for me about how I grew up in New York. Oh! Those are my people right there. I'm gonna holler at you. Let's see you in a minute. I'm gonna come back around and check you out. That's crazy. I was just talking about them too, though, in front of mine. That's wild.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, so the Bay Area hip hop scene in comparison to the New York hip hop scene is like, for me, very reminiscent of the way I grew up. I grew up in what people consider the golden era of hip hop, right? From like 88 to 98, before hip hop became a billion-dollar industry. That's kind of the era that molded my thinking. But then as I got older and started getting into being a performer and being an artist and trying to get on, trying to get signed, I was hitting up the scene and I was really trying to get involved in the scene. So I was going to these underground venues and going to these underground hip hop shows at the New Eurekan, at the spot called the Lion's Den, and seeing artists like the poet Saul Williams recite poetry, seeing artists like Talib Kweli before he became as big as he is now, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Handing out his tapes and his little demos and all of that stuff. Like, I saw that. And what we have in the Bay Area now is kind of very reminiscent of that. You know what I'm saying? It's very reminiscent of just like artists on an independent level trying to get together in community and create their own platforms, be their own boss, you know what I'm saying? Especially considering that, you know, the Bay Area is such a smaller media market.
Yeah.
You know, you need community in order for us to be more successful, and you need to pool resources and all of that. And that's what was happening in New York, at least for me, in the late 90s, early 2000s. You saw a lot of that. So that's what I love about the Bay Area, is because it reminds me of like that era that I was coming up in, as opposed to what New York is now, where it's, because it's a larger media market, it's a more industry based. You get it, you know what I'm saying? People are not necessarily Hollywood, but they about their business. When you have a record label right next door, right down the block, you're not necessarily into the idea of rapping in the street for free or rapping at this small little club for 20 people. You want to be in the mix of it. You know what I'm saying? You want to have access to the power structure that's going to make you a quote-unquote superstar, be successful, whatever that means, you know?
Right, right.
There's the difference there, you know what I mean? But Bay Area, I think, has more of a cultural-based idea of how to do things, which is what I love, because that's what I grew up with.
Okay. So, why do you think the New York hip-hop scene is a bigger media market than the Bay Area hip-hop scene? And what do you think the Bay Area can do to get to that level?
Well, it's a myriad of things. One, mainly because New York is the birthplace of hip-hop. So, for all intents and purposes, New York has had a 30-year head start, almost, in certain respects, in terms of creating an infrastructure in place where you have local talent, you have local acts who can propel themselves to higher platforms and raise their profiles, just by virtue of New York being the birthplace of it all, you know?
Right.
And it's, like I said, it's a larger media market, meaning that the corporations that are signing artists, the major, quote-unquote, major labels, and a lot of the big players live in New York. They're based out of New York, you know what I'm saying? So you have that structure in place. You're in closer proximity as an artist to have access to that world. San Francisco is kind of just by virtue of just geography, kind of in its own little space, right? We're 6 hours away from LA.
Right.
Completely different vibe, completely different, lifestyle. So you have that, and there's really nothing in between that we have access to. So you have New York, you have LA, then you have San Francisco, somewhere in that like in-between universe. So I think the question really is, do we want to be as big as New York, or do we want to be as big as LA? If that means compromising some of the things that makes the Bay Area hip hop scene so dope, that independent hustle, that unwavering work ethic, that you know what I'm saying? Like not only just the work ethic, but then that what is it that I'm looking for? It's like that thing. What I love about the Bay Area is that it's uncompromising. You know what I'm saying? You have that uncompromising drive. You don't need to necessarily compromise your artistic integrity. I know artists that put out albums all the time and they're expressing exactly who they are, whatever it is that they're feeling at the time. They're not necessarily conforming to a formula or a sound in order to get on, quote unquote. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's something that comes with being, in a sense, left out. You know, it's what kind of started hip hop in the Bronx. So if you take it back to history, you look at hip hop in the Bronx, circa 1975, early 80s, that's what you have. You have artists doing things on their own because the major labels weren't looking for rap. They weren't looking for hip hop. It didn't really exist until 1979. And it's only after 1979 then you get people who are more in tune or interested in becoming a hip hop act or a rapper. You know what I'm saying? Rap music then becomes a musical genre.
Right.
You know? So the Bay Area still has this level of purity that I enjoy because it doesn't have access to this world. So it's something that we have to juggle with. It's a challenge. It's like, do we really want to be part of that world? As artists, do we want to be part of that industry so bad that we're willing to compromise the communal aspect of our Bay Area hip hop scene? Are we willing to compromise the cultural aspect of our Bay Area hip hop scene? Do we want to get all industry and shit? Gotta figure it out, you know? I mean, that's something that I tell a lot of my fellow homies out here, like, you know, be ready, because what we're doing now is gonna get certain level of attention.
Yeah.
And the same communal spirit that we have, let's make sure we keep that energy when they start coming in, knocking on the door and offering deals to artists out here who then, you know, one minute they're here rapping with you and then the next minute they're on the cover of a big magazine.
Right.
It could very well happen. But we need to make sure we keep that same energy among us, because I've seen it all too often where it's like we're all family one minute, but let a representative from Def Jam walk through the door. Let a representative from Interscope walk through the door. Then we're ready to eat each other's young and, you know, beef over money and whoever's getting the look or whatever the case is. So it's just a matter of maintaining the community, maintaining our integrity. And I think that will keep us, and not only keep us intact, but separate us from the rest of the white noise that is the music industry.
Right, right. You know, I think that's a really good point, because, for example, look at the Chicago hip-hop scene, or hip-hop/rap. I know ever since Chief Keef blew up, I mean, it seems like the crime rate, like, significantly increased in the Chicago area.
You know, I mean, art imitating life and vice versa. It can definitely influence that, yeah.
Right, right. And I don't know if there was a correlation of that, but you know, it definitely put Chicago on the spotlight a lot more than it was before.
Right, because people feel like it becomes a career path.
Right,
you
right.
know? And then there's a certain archetype for that career path. Like, not only is it a career path, but there's a certain way to go about doing it that makes it viable. And if you see an artist become popular because they're highlighting a certain level of violence that goes on in the community, and they're accentuating it and they're making it a commercial, you're more inclined, if you're coming from that same environment, to do the same as a means to get out.
Right.
Let me highlight my struggle. Let me highlight the same things that I'm doing and get on the same hype so I can get out of here too. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, we're all fighting for survival ultimately. That's really narrows down to. So when you see what artists are doing, whether it's Chicago, LA, New York, Detroit, wherever, we're trying to get on as a means to make a better space for ourselves, our families, you know.
So, as of right now, what's your take on the Bay Area hip-hop scene? Do you feel like it's heading in the right direction, or how do you feel about that?
The Bay Area hip-hop scene, like I said before, I have tremendous love for, because it reminds me a lot of the early days or the golden era early days of hip-hop. I would love for that to maintain itself, but I would also love at the same time for us to get a lot more exposure. There's a myriad of talented artists and driven artists out here that can easily be placed in the game and make it happen for themselves, just simply because of their drive, their ability to hustle, but then also their talent. So I would love to see that get more love, that get more exposure. I would love to see some of my homies who I collaborate with and record with, you know, for us to be going on national tours and for people to recognize who we are, and all having come from the same scene, just have that level of camaraderie, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Do I want that in exchange for our artistic integrity? Do I want that in exchange for, you know, the community that we built? Not necessarily, but you know, I want to see my fellow artists do well. You know, I want to see myself do well. I just want us to all win at the end of the day. What that winning looks like is very subjective and relative, you know?
Right.
But, you know, I love the Bay Area hip hop scene. It's one of the last bastions of pure hip hop that we have out here in the country, you know, because everybody's trying to make this transition into what I call turn up culture. You know what I'm saying? That's becoming the front man, so to speak, of hip hop, as opposed to actual culturally based hip hop that's rooted in peace, love, unity, having fun, that's rooted in the elements, you know, DJing, MCing, breakdancing, graffiti, knowledge. You know, we need that kind of hip hop to have just as much importance in the larger conversation as the dudes who just want to turn up and pop bottles in the club and do drugs. Like, you know, it's human nature to have that dual identity. So, you know, we just need a balance of it.
Right. As Bay Area hip hop artists, what can we do to continue to reinforce the movement?
Continue to show each other love, man. Support local artists. Rock with venues and support venues that support local hip hop. That, like, you know, build partnerships. Let's start seeing ourselves as business. We're in the startup capital of the world right now, right? This is the home of Twitter. This is the home of Facebook. This is the home of, like, all these big startup companies that have billions upon billions of dollars and have the attention of the entire world. Why don't we take cues from them and recognize that we as artists are our own startups, and that we need to start figuring our lives out and negotiating and wiggling and moving in that respect, moving in a way that is business oriented just as much as it's artistically oriented. You know what I'm saying? Recognizing that, yeah, me myself as this MC from New York who's out here, I'm a business myself. I do event hosting, I do, you know, web series, I produce, I do all of these things. That makes me a business. It makes me something that adds value to the community. You know, I'm no different than the next artist who not only has a mixtape out, but also does graphic artwork, or, you know what I'm saying, graphic design. We can all pull our resources together and make ourselves larger, bigger, and better. And we just have to have that business acumen and be in that mind, so that we can make it pop up for ourselves and be successful.
Absolutely, man.
Coming to a hood near you, all my people sing.